Greetings. I'm Elizabeth Emery, producer and host of Hear Her Sports, the podcast about exceptional female athletes and women in sports. If you like the podcast, spread the word. For those of you who enjoy listening, there's a donate button on the website at hearhersports.com donate page. Today, my guest is Alison Dunlap, a remarkable cyclist with a long list of accomplishments. She won mountain bike world championships in 2001, is many times national champion in mountain bike, cyclocross, and road, a 2-times Olympian, and the World Cup overall winner in 2002. Find out more details about her career through the episode notes on Hear Her Sports website. Alison and I knew each other racing on the road in the 90s, so we start off by just saying hello. Our conversation, however, focuses on being an active woman and having a baby, how Alison has managed to stay fit and sane during that time, some advice for new mothers, and other thoughts about raising a kid interested in physical activity and the outdoors. Alison definitely tells it like it is, no holding back, so join us. I'd love to hear from you and how you've managed to be sporty and a mom. Contact me through hearhersports.com. Let's get started. Hey there.
Hi.
So how are you?
Oh, just dropped Emmett off at school, so it's always a little chaotic. But it's good. Yeah, it's good.
I'm sort of surprised how early you're up and ready to chat on the phone.
Oh, I know. It's just like, well, we're up at, 5:45 or 6. Today it's cold and rainy out, so it's easy to sit down and start working.
Yeah. Anyway, I have to tell you, there's a lot of stuff I would love to talk to you about, but I want to focus on parenting as an active, energetic person, because recently during an interview, my guest revealed that she was pregnant. She hadn't told anybody, and she was understandably really concerned about how having a baby would impact her sporty lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I was wondering what you would say to her, and how did your active life change?
It definitely changes, but ultimately you can still do all the active things that you used to do, but it takes a shit ton of planning and help from family and spouse, and it's exhausting. But physically, yes, you can 100% come back and do everything you used to do, but you just get a lot more efficient because you soon realize that you can't just go out and train for 4 hours every day. You can train maybe 4 hours once a week, and then the rest of the time you're doing these short little 30-minute workouts or 1 hour workout, and you do a lot of intensity because you don't get the quantity that you're used to. You can still make it happen, but again, it's a lot of logistics management.
But are you good at that, or were you good at that when you started?
I am good at it, and it's exhausting, and it's the thing I like the least because I'm so used to just, like you look at your watch and you're like, it's beautiful out. Let's go for a 4-hour ride. And you call a few friends and you're out the door.
Right.
And that spontaneity goes away, which, for some people isn't a big deal. For me, it's, definitely more of a challenge to, I have to sit down and look ahead in my calendar. And, if I want to go to Moab for a weekend, I have to plan that a month out. And, I used to be able to just do that a couple days in advance, and I'm much better at it because I know if I don't do that, then I don't do anything. And that drives me crazy. That's worse than anything. So
your son is 6 now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've had 6 years of practice at this point.
Yeah.
And he's now in first grade. Is that going to change things?
It has opened things up for me. Now he's gone 5 days a week. And, so I have my little business at home. And so, it definitely helps having a real consistent work schedule now. But the day goes fast. Like, you get home at 8:15 and, mornings are chaos. So when you get home, usually you got to clean the kitchen. I got to make the bed downstairs. I'm putting away some clothes that are thrown around the floor, just all these little, I don't know, fiddle fart type activities that take you away from your work. And that's one of the drawbacks of working from home, I find. But that was my choice. And so I do that for a little bit in the morning, and then I sit down and I work, and But the day flies by.
Yeah.
And then it's time for pickup. You're like, oh, wait a minute. And some days I'll call a friend and I'll just be like, hey, I've got so much to do. Can Emmett just come over for a play date? And, usually play dates are great because, they're usually classmates, friends that are his age, and they're free. Like, it's not like babysitting. So they go over there, they play, and then you trade. And then maybe those kids come over to your house next week or something.
Right.
So I can do that if I need more time.
Right. So I want to go back just a little bit. How did your life change both positively and negatively 6 years ago with having Emmett?
So I'll start with the negative first. The negatives obviously were, losing my freedom to, just do whatever you want. And I went from being a super elite athlete at the end of cyclocross nationals, and then I was pregnant by February. And so even just the pregnancy was a huge shift in my thinking. And, my pregnancy was great and nothing happened, but it was very challenging for me to just give up my body to this growing little baby inside me. And, that you're going to get your body back, but 9 months is a long time, especially when you're used to riding every single day. And so that was my first adjustment. And then, the baby's born. And I think the biggest thing is just this lack of sleep. And, everybody knows, every new mom knows that it's going to be rough, but nobody tells you that it doesn't stop after the first 3 months. It keeps going. And like the lack of sleep goes for probably the first 3 years. And it just, the accumulative exhaustion is something that I wasn't prepared for. And that was the biggest negative for me was, you're constantly tired, which means that, you get sick a lot more and you're grumpy, and then you have very little time. So if you don't exercise and you're exhausted, then the two together, you can just be miserable. And you're so tired.
Were you training during that time?
No, I wasn't. I was done racing, but I rode as much as I could because it kept my sanity. Like exercise and bike riding, especially, was the reason I was a good parent. And that I knew that, and that was such a high priority for me. And I'm glad it was, but it definitely made for some tears and frustration.
It's hard to picture you in that way.
I know. Like I had more meltdowns the first year of being a parent than I did my 40 years previous, all combined.
Yep.
So then the positive, of course, is that you have this beautiful baby and, just the amazing experience of being a parent and, all those little milestones that you get to experience, when they roll over for the first time, or they stand up, or they start walking, or they smile at you for the first time. And, that first smile it's just a smile, right? But the feeling that you have as a parent is like, is unlike anything you've ever experienced in your entire life. Even, winning the world championships is not an experience that relates to anything I've had as a parent. Completely different. And so all those little things that just melt your heart, make up for, the overwhelming feelings of, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I am exhausted. I'm grumpy, and this little thing is screaming, and there's poopy diaper that I got to put away and clean up, and I'm all by myself, and, and you just lose it. And you get those days more often than you get the incredible days in the first year of having a baby. And yeah, and you just are like, why are we doing this? You question yourself many times. But it is an amazing, the highs are higher than anything you've ever experienced as well. So it goes both ways.
Did you have your coaching business at that time or not yet?
I did. Yeah. So I had my coaching business. I had stopped running clinics, which was good, but I did have my athletes. And, was that good or bad? It was probably a little of both. It kind of pulled me away from, being completely overwhelmed with parenting, and, I got to at least do some work. But, I would sit in front of my computer and I'd have this, Emmett would be in his little swaddle on my chest and he would be nursing and then he would fall asleep and I would sit there in front of my computer with this baby on my chest for a couple hours. And, I got work done, but it's just such a funny thing how you try and you make it work. I mean, you try and all these creative ways to, be a parent and work at the same time. And you can pull it off for the first 8 to 10 months. And then once they start walking, then that all falls apart. Then they're mobile, right? And when they're 10 months old and they're walking, you can't just let them walk around the house. You have to be right behind them. Because, of course, they're pulling everything off the shelves and putting everything into their mouth. And yeah, so, but at least as a parent, it starts out slow. Like, you get, all this time to work up to, the chaos of when they're walking and then the chaos of when they're 3 years old and 5 years old. And so it's a very slow progression because you look back on the whole experience and the first 6 months are so easy compared to, what you have now, just because they eat and they sleep and they don't move around and you can carry them. They can't tell you, no, I don't want this. I don't want that. You can go anywhere you want with the baby. It's so easy. And so you do get time to kind of work up to how challenging it is.
Right. And Emmett seems very active. So I can imagine he's running around a lot.
He is active. Yeah. But he's not like hyper spastic. I mean, he has his moments, but he sits down and he'll work on his stuff at school where they're writing and learning harder words or he's way into art. So he'll sit down and work on art projects sometimes. And, other times he's just a total pest and won't leave me alone because he just wants my attention. And, being an only child also has some challenges. I can't just say, go play with your brother. There is no brother or sister. So I'm his playmate and, it's been really awesome, but it also can be challenging because you feel like you don't ever get time to do stuff for yourself in the house when he's around at the same time. Like it's hard to coexist with him without having an interaction.
Right. And how did you introduce Emmett to sporting activities? Because I've seen through your social media that he's, mountain biking, hiking and skiing and all of that.
It just started from day one. I mean, he was just a few days old and I was, walking around the neighborhood. And then, as soon as I was healed up from labor and delivery and able to hike, then we started hiking. And then as soon as he was 6 months old, then he was big enough to put into the bike trailer. So then I started, I got to ride my bike with him and then we did that almost every day. And so it just was such a part of his life. He didn't know any better. Like he didn't know any different. And, I just did a ton of stuff with him. I was always hiking and riding and adventuring with him as a baby, really young baby. And then that's what he grew up watching and seeing. And, kids at that age, they just want to do what mom and dad do. And so it was so easy for him when we gave him the Strider, and he just, he wasn't like riding the Strider immediately, but, he saw that mom and dad rode bikes every day. So I want to ride a bike. And that doesn't happen with every child. Of course, some children just don't have the coordination and they just don't like it. And no matter what you do, they don't want to be outside or hike or any of that stuff. And luckily we have our child loves it. So I'm very thankful.
Does he complain? I mean, is he talking about being tired and I want to go home and when are we going to get there?
Oh yeah. I mean, we have plenty of, adventures where I'm just like, what the hell am I doing out here? Because he's crying and complaining and hungry and I don't want to be here and I don't like this, mom. And, so, and now that he's getting older, he's definitely more opinionated, which is sometimes a challenge for me because, last year, every time I said, let's do something, he was like, great, let's go do it. Now I say, let's go bike riding, and he'll think about it and be like, well, Mom, why don't we do this? Why don't we compromise? And he'll go into this long-winded explanation, because he's just, he has more opinions about what he likes and doesn't like. And, if we're going biking, then we're going to go, and then we have a great time, and he loves it. But, oh yeah, we have our moments.
Yeah.
With children at this age, I find that most of the time when you run into troubles, it's because they're tired and they're hungry. If you can keep them well fed and keep the sugar level up and, keep them stimulated, then they're great and they have a great time.
Does he have a favorite activity?
I think the mountain biking is his favorite.
Yeah, he looks very good at it.
Yeah, and he's just very coordinated and very athletically, not gifted. He's not like a prodigy or anything, but he's just very coordinated. And so anything he does it well. And, some kids don't have that. And so, he's got great skills on the mountain bike, great balance, very good body awareness. And so it's fun for him. He doesn't, he's not scared and he's not crashing all the time. And, he's riding real trails, and I think he loves it.
Do you get nervous?
I actually don't. And I've noticed with him over the years is that although he has really good skills, he tends to be, he's not a reckless go-getter. Like if we get to a descent and he looks down and he realizes it's pretty steep and technical, he stops and he's like, I'm going to walk this, Mom. And I've been with other kids the same age that they don't know better and they don't appreciate, the difficulty of a section. And so they just go down it and they crash and they get hurt. And so it's been really nice with him. I actually have complete trust in him because I know that he will never go down something unless he knows he can ride it.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, it is nice. And, and I ride with him most of the time. Greg works a lot more. And so when Greg rides with him, Greg is a lot more, a worried parent because he's not used to being with Emmett on the bike and knowing what he can and can't do. And he's just micromanaging Emmett every time we ride. I'm just like, shush, let him ride his bike. He's fine. Oh, I don't want him to get hurt. He's not, it's funny.
Right. That's cool. Do you get bored going out with him?
Oh, no, it's definitely very entertaining. And you gotta be, even on the most easy trails, as a parent, you're still constantly worried. You're just like, oh God, don't hit that tree. Oh, and you don't say anything, but you're watching like a hawk. And so you're never bored. And they're talking, and they're not talking about the bike ride. They're talking about, all these random things. And so, I've had great conversations with Emmett on bike rides. And so, yeah, it's highly entertaining. The only challenge is you have to have the mindset of when I go out with my child, it's not for me to exercise. It's for my son. It's to be together. It's this, time we're going to share, but I'm not out there to get my workout in. And if you know that, then it makes it so much easier.
So how often are you getting out for yourself now that he's in school and whatnot?
I'm probably riding 3 or 4 days a week. And then I go rock climbing once a week with some friends at night. There's an indoor gym downtown. So, so I'm definitely getting time out by myself or with friends. And on the bike, most of my rides, I call it my hour of power. I have an hour and I'm out the door, and in 5 minutes, I'm riding as hard as I can. I just, I sprint up every hill. I go as hard as I can whenever it works, and I get my endorphin buzz, and then I come back and I'm right back into work.
Right. What are your aims when you're exercising now? Just to stay healthy?
It's the immediate goal is to get my heart rate up and burn calories and get a hard workout in, because I don't work out very often. So it's not at all what I would do if I was training, towards a race or a big ride, so, because every time I ride my bike, I try and ride hard. And then if I need to take an easy day, now my mentality is, well, an easy day means I don't ride at all, because if I'm going to ride my bike, I want it to be a good hard workout, and I'm not going to go ride my bike for an hour really easy. I'm going to stay at home and get some work done. And so, that's not good. That's not good for training, and that's fine. And I know it because I'm not training. I'm just out there trying to just maintain some fitness, and it really does keep my sanity. But a big part of it is the intensity. Like, I love the intensity, and it just, clears my head. It makes me feel better. And I can come home and I can sit and work the rest of the day.
Do you miss that structured training?
Sometimes I miss the structure. I think I miss more the long epic rides that we would always do on the weekends, with friends, because those were just like big adventure days, and there wasn't really structure on those rides, but it was kind of, ride hard up the hills and work on your descending. And, there was some guidance, but for the most part, it was just this hammer fest between friends. And, we'd go out all day, and then we'd come back and you eat, and then you sit on the couch and you watch TV and you take a nap. And that was the day. And I really miss that, because now if I get a chunk of time to ride on the weekends, which I do a lot, I'll go out for 4 hours, but I'm constantly watching my watch, either because the babysitter has to leave at noon, or, I want to get back so Greg can get out. So we switch. And so there's that kind of hangs over your head. And then when you get back, you walk in the door and immediately you're back to being a parent. And, there's no downtime. I mean,
no napping.
There's no napping. I mean, there's no time to shower. It's just like full on the minute you walk in the door. And so that's, you get used to it, but it's different. Every once in a while I will have a weekend away, and, we have to plan it again, like 6 weeks out, where I go away for the weekend with some girlfriends, and we go to Crested Butte, and then it's just 3 days of riding. And then it's like, I have not a care in the world. I don't have to worry about being a parent or working or anything. And those are such a blessing. And those weekends come about like twice a year, but you just make it work.
Right. That's interesting what you said about always having to think about the schedule. It's like, it sounds like now one of the biggest things is that you're constantly having to think about what's next, which isn't true when you're doing that sort of, solo training.
Yeah, it's all about logistics management. And sure, you get a babysitter, and babysitters are awesome, but you're paying for that, right? So if you go on an all-day mountain bike ride, then all of a sudden your all-day mountain bike ride is costing you $80. And you're like, holy, and then, so that's great every once in a while, but if you're riding 3 or 4 times a week with babysitters and weekends, it adds up. And then you start, of course, as a parent, you feel guilty. You're like, I'm spending all this time paying for somebody to be with my child. And then you have a hard time rationalizing, like, is this right that I go out for 4 hours every other day? It's probably not. I want to be there for my child. I don't want somebody else to raise my child. So then that's why I went to the 1 hour workout, because then I could do it, and it was short, and I could do it while he was at school, or, I did a lot. I do a ton of trainer rides. When Emmett would nap, when he was younger, I would ride the trainer, or now I ride the trainer, and he works on art, or he'll watch a video, or, play in the dog run in the backyard. With kids too, they do better on a schedule.
Right.
And, now with children, another huge adjustment for us was dinner. We always used to eat dinner at 8 or 8:30, and the sun's up, and I don't want to make dinner. So now we make dinner. I start dinner at 5 o'clock, and and we're trying to eat by 6 so that I can get him in, start bedtime by 7, because kids need to go to sleep by 7:30 to 8. And that's been a huge shift for us.
That's supposed to be healthy, eating early.
Yeah. But it's funny, of course, when you're riding or exercising a lot, then by 10 o'clock, you're starving again.
Right. I don't eat early.
Yeah. And we used to, the first 2 years, I would feed Emmett at 5 or 5:30, and then I would make another dinner for me and Greg, and we would eat after he went to bed. And we got to a point, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, we need to eat together as a family, and we just need to shift what we do. And that was rough, and we did. And, now that's just the schedule, and that's the way we do it. And we have great family dinners. Now he's older, that becomes really important, is to have that time together.
Sure. Do you have any sense of, like at what point or what age Emmett will, test you and your physical abilities?
Oh boy, I'm sure it'll come sooner than I realize. He's already, we ride to school, and he likes to put it in his hardest gear, and he likes to stand up and sprint up these certain stretches of road. And when he like really goes for it, I have to work pretty dang hard to catch him. And even though he's only doing it for 30 seconds, he's got some strong little legs. And I hope he just continues to love to ride. And, I could see by the time he's 10, 11, 12 that, it's going to start to be interesting. But I'm always going to kick his ass because I'm his mom.
Until you don't.
Yeah, I know, until I don't.
So I've recently read a lot of stuff about how important it is exposing kids to a lot of different sports and not having them focus on one single one. Do you have thoughts about that and, what you see as the future?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we definitely have not pushed him to start into organized sports. And I think it's great, and it is good for kids to try a lot of different things. But I think what happens to these poor kids is that, they have music lessons, and then they go to lacrosse practice, and then they have to go to karate practice, and then they have, and that's Monday. And then Tuesday they have soccer practice and, art class, and then they go to cooking class. And then so, they're doing all these incredible, enriching activities, but they are stretched so thin that they never have time to just hang out and play. And I think the biggest thing that kids are losing is just that ability to play on their own and to imagine and create and pretend and fantasize when they're out there in the backyard playing. And so we've intentionally not done a lot of that stuff. And I know why parents do it. I mean, one, it's you want to expose your child to all these incredible activities, and two, you need a break. So let's sign them up for this class, and that's going to give me an extra 2 hours every day to work on my own stuff, right? But Emmett will go out in the backyard, and we have this dog run. We have no dog, but it's just this big dirt pile, and I love listening to him because he's making all the sounds of the trucks and the mining and the digging. And he's just totally playing with all these things back there and making tunnels and roads. And he just loves it. And that, I think, is what kids are lacking, is the time to just be a kid and not be shuttled to and from, 10 different activities. So yes, I agree. It's great to have all that exposure to a lot of different sports and not be so intense early on. But on the other hand, I think it also is really hard on kids to do tons of activities like that.
Right. Do you think you'll be, do you think you'll feel pressure at some point to sign him up for a bunch of organized sports? Like, how long will you be able to keep him on sort of this no organized sport program?
I don't know. I mean, he has not had any interest in doing any of it, so that helps. So, he loves riding his bike, and he loves running around and playing with friends. But I haven't had any kind of like, Mom, I really want to play soccer. Let's sign up. Let's sign, or there's a rock climbing team I've asked him about, and no, I don't want to do that. And so I don't know when that will change. I'm guessing, he'll just see more of his friends doing, talking about going to soccer practice, or I have to go to football practice, or I have to do, and maybe when he's 8 or 9 or 10, he'll show some interest. And I really do want to get him involved in a team sport eventually when he's a little older, because I think that would be good for him. But, right now it's like, as a parent, you're like, you get all worked up about all this, and then you're like, hold on, he's only 6 years old.
Right. What were you doing as a kid?
At 6, I think I had learned to ride a bike when I was 5, but basically just running around and playing with other friends and nothing, no organized anything. I think I started my first soccer team when I was maybe in 3rd or 4th grade. No, not even that. I think it was not till like 6th or 7th grade. And before that, I played the flute and I was in Girl Scouts. So those are my 2 big activities.
And your family was active, weren't they?
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, my mom was a school teacher, so she was busy, doing school stuff. And we did a lot of stuff on the weekends, hiking and camping and skiing. And so we grew up in a very active family, but neither one of my parents was ever involved in organized sports. So they were not, former football players or, basketball or any of that, even though they both are very active in sports now, mostly skiing and hiking and cycling.
Right.
So yeah, but it was it was definitely a part of our life, and just being active, I think, and being outside and kind of the backcountry aspect. I think that's what we all grew up with, more than we got to go to the football game every week and we got to go to the soccer games and
right.
That kind of stuff.
So thinking about the woman that was my guest who revealed that she was pregnant, do you have any thoughts for new parents or advice that you can offer from what you've learned in the last 6 years?
Probably just don't be afraid to reach out to others, and don't be afraid to reach out and express how hard it is. And you'll be shocked at how many other people will say, oh my God, I felt the exact same way. And this is what I did. Because there's so many resources out there. It's almost, it's overwhelming, and you don't even know where to start to look for help. And so you just, find your friends that have small children or have been through, have children that are, elementary age and have been through all of that, and talk to them, and don't feel like you have to do it all yourself, and don't feel like if you ask for help that you're a failure as a parent. That's really big. And being a parent, especially for the woman, is incredibly isolating, especially that first year, because, you have this baby who can't talk to you, and they're nursing constantly. And then you're having to do naps 2 or 3 times a day. So you're very restricted. Like, it's hard to get out and be social. It's hard to get out and do things for yourself. And when it comes right down to it, you are so flippin' tired that you get to a point where you don't even care anymore. You're like, it's too much work to organize a bike ride. I'm just going to stay home and work on my computer answering emails or something. And so you just, like, I would just say, don't hesitate to, hook up with friends right away. Take a night out for yourself. Don't feel guilty asking for help, and don't feel guilty doing something for yourself, because a baby will literally suck the life out of you. And if you let that child, they will, and you'll lose your identity, you'll lose yourself. And yes, you want to give everything you can to your new baby, but you can't be a good parent if you have lost your own identity.
Have you and Greg made a point of, like having date night or anything like that, making sure that the 2 of you are spending time together?
We go in phases, and we'll have a stretch where we're really good at every week we try and do a date night. And then we then we'll get busy and the date night doesn't work one week, and then the next week it doesn't work again. And so we don't do it consistently, but we know that it's really important. And in general, I think we've been really good about, trying to connect with each other. We could definitely do better. It's funny. At first, you work really hard to do things together as a couple, and then the further on you get in the parenting thing, you realize again that trying to organize a date night can sometimes be really challenging. And then you throw the $40 or $50 for the babysitter, and then the $50 or $60 to have this nice dinner. And then if you go to a movie, your date night's over $100. And for some, that's not a big deal. And for others, you're just like, it's like we can't even afford to go out and have a date night. So you got to be creative. And so what you end up doing is you start just trading off. And so, I go for my ride, I come back, Greg goes out and does photography. And although you're not together, you're still doing what you love. And that helps keep each of you happier, so that when you are together, even if it's only for a few minutes here and there, you're not grumpy and tired. Because when you get grumpy and tired, you take it out on your spouse, and it sucks. And one of the biggest challenges of having a baby is keeping your marriage and your relationship healthy, because that takes a huge hit when you have a baby. And I don't care how great your marriage is, the marriage suffers incredibly. Even with the best intentions, it is really, really hard on the marriage. So, you got to work your ass off to keep the marriage healthy when you have a child. And so I say date nights are great, and the more the better. And do a date night and do not feel guilty. And it's really hard. It's really hard to, especially in a young child, when they don't really know what's going on and they start crying, don't leave me, don't leave me with the babysitter. I don't like her. Don't leave me. And, they won't let go of your leg, and they're just crying. And Greg and I had many date nights where we finally peeled Emmett off my leg, and we get out in the car in the garage and we sit down and we burst into tears, and because it was so traumatic saying goodbye to Emmett to go on this stupid date night. And we're just like, oh, this is horrible. Like, and then you go on the date and it's not you're miserable. And, yeah, but that goes away. They go through phases, the kids as well. And, dates are easy now. I mean, we have great babysitters, and Emmett is so independent. It's like, okay, when you coming home?
See you, Mom.
So, but we've had some very traumatic, you don't realize that either as a parent. That's great. We'll get a babysitter and we'll have a date. And you forget the whole human element of your young child, of like, wait a minute, my parents are leaving me with this stranger, no, hold on, that's not working. And, and they make sure that that they're not happy. And so the emotions can be very powerful, and the guilt can be overwhelming when you try and do something as a couple. But it's still ultimately in the end worth it.
Right. You mentioned, your sense of identity. Has your sense of identity really altered, do you think, from when you were racing? And how have what is your identity now? Or do you think about that?
No, I don't know if I actively think about it, but I would say, no, I'm still who I was before I had a baby. It's just, I've just altered and shifted what I do, but not that much. I mean, yeah, I don't race my bike anymore, but when I retired, I was ready to be done. And it was only because Greg had kind of decided he didn't want to have kids. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll just go back to bike racing, because I loved it. But once he decided he was ready to have a child, then I retired, and it wasn't like I wanted to go back. So I was able to walk away from the competitive side of the sport and not have any regrets or longing to go back and race, which has been great. And So I've shifted. Now, if I had to give up cycling entirely to be a parent, then we'd have some major problems. But, um, and I'm sure I would adjust and find another sport, but, cycling is still a huge part of who I am. And it's not just my job. It really is part of my soul and my identity. And Emmett sees that, and, he knows that it's a big part of our life. And, we're not obsessed about it, but it's just, there's just something about riding and exercise and being out in the, out in the wilderness and out in Mother Nature that I just love. And it just keeps me who I am.
Yeah, it would be hard to give up cycling. Well, I want to wrap things up. Is there anything you want to talk about or mention that we didn't talk about?
I think it's another good thing with parenting and being athletic and active is take your child and bring them into your life. Like, don't give up your life for your child. Your child needs to fit into what you already do. And I think a lot of parents lose sight of that. And, they stop doing what they love. They stop seeing friends. But little Johnny gets to go to, all these different, sports activities, and he plays the piano and music and art class, and, he's incredibly enriched, right? But you, the parent, have no time for your own, for what you do, and you and your spouse, and, and it takes effort, but keep doing what you're doing, and you just make your child fit into that life that you already have.
I really like that. I mean, what do I know? I don't have kids, but I like the idea of Emmett seeing, like how excited you guys are to ride your bike and do all that outdoorsy stuff. And, whether or not he ends up being an outdoorsy type person, he's seeing that excitement.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know he has been, enriched by everything that we've done from day one, even though, a lot of stuff I've done with him, he doesn't remember anymore, because he doesn't remember when I, dragged him all over Utah when he was 3 years old, because they don't remember when they were that young. So, but I know that it still had an impact on who he is. And, he's this wonderful little person. And, I'd like to think that a lot of that is because of, what we did as parents the first 5 years. I mean, they say that the first 5 years are the most critical. And by the time they're 5 years old, their personality is set and they're who they're going to be for the rest of their life. And that
wow
is terrifying, because the first 5 years as a parent, you're an idiot and you don't know what the hell you're doing. And yet you have this little child, and everything you say and do with this little child, you're like, oh my God, I ruined him. He's going to be a serial killer now. And, so it's so hard as a parent because you don't get a second chance. Like, and you see what happens to kids that get, messed up by their parents. And they, we have a lot of problems with mental illness because of what parents have done to their children. And it's huge responsibility. So yeah, the first 5 years, you got to make it count.
So now you can do whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
Right.
I don't recommend that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Alison, so much for agreeing to talk to me.
Yeah. No, I'm glad this worked finally.
Yeah. It ended up being perfect.
Good.
Thanks for listening. I know it's totally a pain, but please take a moment to rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. It really does help the podcast to reach more people and to get the word out about female athletes and women in sports. Just a reminder, Allie's Bar is still available for listeners at 50% off with free shipping using the promo code HERSPORTS. That means a box of 12 are only $14. And they taste great and aren't loaded with sugar. There's been a lot of chat about meal planning. I'm totally terrible at that and often find myself happily saved by an Allie's Bar. Also, check out the new layout of the Hear Her Sports website at hearhersports.com. It has a beautiful landing page featuring a design by Agnes Studio. It's easier to find the podcast you want and to listen directly from the site. Finally, sign up for our newsletter and follow on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Hear Her Sports. See you in 2 weeks.